I mentioned to Mr. McWalter, part of this today, one of the exciting things I wanted to announce, which may have got out there but publicly for the first time on your podcast, is that I'm donating the motorsports park, the Prince George Motorsports Park that I've had for all these years, and so many wonderful sponsors locally and volunteers. So it's one of my passions because I grew up racing cars, still do. And this facility came available years ago when I bought it, and we just keep pouring money into it, and several partners have helped. But recently, you'll
And
see we put everything in place. So I'm donating that back to the community of Prince George.
wow,
So it's
is that just
133 acre.
is that north of Prince George? And
It's up by Chief. It's on Chief Lake Road. It's
right,
the quarter-mile track.
right.
There's a
I've been
lake, mud
there.
bog. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's 10 minutes outside of town.
right.
It's crucial that we protect it
Oh yes,
because
no
you
question.
can't replace them anymore. No one would ever
No,
build a new one.
no.
And so all the people in Western Canada, some even from the US, they come up and proudly, Prince George is now one of the top, it's one of the nicest quarter-mile tracks and motorsport parks in the country.
Wow.
Um, and so recently talking to my children and my family trust stuff is I've said I want to make it public. We're donating this to the city of Prince George. So we're going to donate
Wow.
this $2 million property back um, to help others like that maybe that's their passion. And down here we're doing stuff more with kids in healthcare. Next week I'll be at Ronald McDonald House doing a donation, $80,000 to
And
them for a property we sold in Kelowna here. So that to me, you talk about passion, is I get to work on business and I get to work on charity. And I say to people, you don't have to have any money, but we all have the same thing as time. So
exactly.
choose so you'll know me, and I'm terrible, John. I can't comment on the news. I never watch TV. So I don't watch any news. I don't read it. I don't listen to it. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
And I just focus on what I can control. So
Exactly.
I can help people and I can do businesses. And so I just say to everybody, even if you don't have a bunch of money, but you have a job, good things happen to me throughout life because of the volunteering, helping others.
Right.
You wouldn't believe how often when I do a charity event down here and I invite people to come help, they meet other amazing people.
Yeah.
And then those people see them as great humans, and it's rewarded with job opportunities and other things. So I've always said that is no excuse. All of us could choose to spend some time, and that could be at the soup kitchen, that could be at the any one of the local charities. Just do something to help
And,
others, and the
and
doors that'll open up.
hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those guests watching us from around the world, they say, "Oh, we know where Canada is. British Columbia on the West Coast, right? Right." And then Prince George, well, Prince George and Vancouver. There is a big city in British Columbia. It's called Vancouver. We are 500 miles north of our European friends, 800 kilometers. And I am in Prince George. And then we have a very special guest today, and his name is Brent Marshall, and he is also from British Columbia, and he used to be in the north. I've had him on my show a couple of times, and Brent is very special. He is an entrepreneur extraordinaire, was born in British Columbia, and he tells us all about that, and then has been an entrepreneur, has been a philanthropist, and currently resides in Kelowna, and a very, very interesting guest. Brent, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Thank you. That's quite the introduction, especially from a man like yourself. With all you've accomplished, I recently had a chance. I was listening to some of the podcasts recently, and yes, when you talk about those of us, or in BC and Prince George, it's amazing how many people, when I get to do business around the world, but they don't understand where Prince George is. But you coined it before. We truly are the center of the province and the
We
northern
are.
capital, and yeah, it's
Absolutely.
beautiful. spot, and I was very fortunate to spend quite a few years in Prince George, and
Yeah,
still
and
refer to it as my hometown where I spent a lot of my years. Although I did grow up in Houston, BC, um, even further northwest, I
yeah,
believe, and very relative. Listening to some of your stuff, your background, I got a real kick out of. I grew up in a small sawmill town. I know it's been very topical lately, and you've been discussing what's going on in the lumber industry, and it's very timely as I grew up in a small lumber town in Houston, BC. So, and it done some of those jobs you discuss. It's where you did as well. I laugh when I was saying, and knowing your background in that industry, lumber piling, I as well cleaning out. They're called the burner pots, Houston
yes,
Forest products,
yes.
and lumber piling at the sawmills. It's so funny that you talk about coming over to Canada and doing the jobs that I as well did 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Very, very typical for us for those northern towns.
So
Editing, yeah.
just about you, you were born in Hope, I believe, looking at your bio, and then most of your life young life you spent in Houston. And tell
Yeah.
us a bit more about your background there. You went to school there, and then what did you do after that? And then somehow you ended up, in particular, you had a liking towards cars of all kinds of different descriptions already from a young age forward. And so kind of share it with us.
Yeah, that's you're correct. It's we growing up or born in Hope, BC, and the first 6, 7 years of my life there. And again, the British Columbia back then, it was heavily driven by industry. So forestry and mining. My father was in mining, and that brought us up to Houston, BC, where Houston, very small town, about 3,000 people, but two very large sawmills and the mine at the time, Equity Silver Mines. And yeah, it was a bustling little town at that point, but all very much blue collar. Yeah, very industry driven, and great way to grow up in that small town. And like as I mentioned earlier, did a lot of the similar kind of tasks. That's what you do in those small industry towns.
Yeah.
And most of the jobs lead to, like a Tom Cochrane song, they lead to a job at the sawmill or one of
And
the auxiliary jobs to that, or
or
supplementary
make some
jobs to it.
extra money, right? Even when you go to school, work in the sawmills, maybe during the weekend or in the
Oh
holidays,
yeah,
and yeah. So
sawmills and the mine both would hire so many summer students. It was critical for a lot of us. Later, when I went to university, those summer jobs, yeah, were amazing for us to help pay for the following year's school.
so where did you go to? Did you go to UBC or where did you go to
Yeah,
Vancouver?
UBCO for the electrical engineering. So
Okay,
yeah, grew up in Houston, and then at a young age, I was similar to yourself. I was on my own at a pretty young age,
right.
and then decided if I was going to move on from there, it wasn't really appealing. I was going to go to school. Went to school for engineering, and then literally when I finished school on my way home, was hit on the highway, hit head on by some tourists, and almost killed me. So that was a real
Very
life
close call,
changing.
right?
Yeah, I was lucky, and I was in forms of rehabilitation for almost 2 years.
I saw that.
Um,
Yeah,
and that's when I started working with special needs children, because that was
right.
something I could do with being not in great shape physically, like being and banged up. And that those two things truly changed my career path or my life,
So,
because then I'm back in Houston. I needed something to do for work. I was working with special needs kids, but again, at 25, I had virtually nothing. And a local company there, friends, asked me to sell cars. And although it wasn't what I wanted to do for a career, I needed to do something to make money, and you just never know what's going to work. And I sold cars and did very well at it, became one of the top in the country. And that evolved into me taking over the place and running it, having really good success. And then later being headhunted to go work for big big car groups in Alberta. So I was in Edmonton for a while, running some of the biggest dealerships in the country, and then I was very fortunate to be offered a chance to come back and take over the Dodge dealership in Houston, or sorry, in the Dodge dealership in Prince George almost 20 years ago now, I guess.
So, and I watched you. You did well, very well, actually. You turned that, you made that company very, very successful, became a shareholder in the company, did well financially, did other things in addition to it. But what made you so successful in the car business?
You're gonna laugh, John. At that time, it was transparency, which I'm still involved in the car business today. What I did very differently then, which is still the way that industry is coming around, is be very transparent on here's what our costs are, here's where we need to be, try to help clients in a different fashion, and that treated us very well. So everywhere I went, using that methodology, we were able to become number one in the province, like we did in BC, or number one in Canada eventually.
Yeah.
And that was just, yeah. And then, of course, Prince George was a real, it was an amazing town for me. I came back primarily in the car business, but once we had that car dealership, number one in the province and later number one in the country, I went on to invest in multiple other local businesses. At one point, Earl's or Remax, helicopter company, drilling, body shops, beer and wine stores. So I really went on an entrepreneurial spree and ended up involved in about, it was close to 18 different companies
But
by
you
the
were
time I
still in
was,
your
yeah, I
late
was early, late
30s, early
30s, early
40s.
40s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a
So,
crazy schedule. But the most important thing was every company, and this was driven by earlier in my life. I didn't mention I was fire rescue and an EMA4. I was, and my ex-wife was a paramedic, trained to be paramedic up there. So we were very passionate about helping people then.
right.
And I have four children, and my oldest, when he was born not breathing, and he was medevaced from Smithers to Children's Hospital. And that trip, we went down on the 20th of December and spent almost 2 weeks sleeping on the floor while he was in this incubator medical equipment. And it was really touch and go for quite a while
Here
how
in
he was
Prince
doing.
George.
Yeah, he was, yeah, so, or sorry, no, Prince George later, that drove me to do the children's wing,
Yeah,
be a
yeah.
part of that. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we were at Children's Hospital, and thank God everything turned out fine. He's an amazing boy who just finished his finance degree at UBC Sauder.
My man.
And but it really drove me to do more, to give back because of what I saw, how I was affected spending that time at Children's Hospital,
Right.
and left there with a vision and a dream to grow companies, and every company to donate back to charitable causes like that,
Right.
to good causes like that, in perpetuity. So that has been my life's goal, is creating, growing, scaling companies, but ensuring that every one of them gives back in a large way. So that's been the most rewarding part, to be honest, of all the things we've done. Never, if there's one thing I could share on the business front, it's always nice when we became these different businesses. If you become number one in the province or number one in the country, that's a great feeling, but
Right.
nowhere near as rewarding as what we were able to do in building that children's hospital in Prince George, or
And
the
tell,
rooftop play area, or I mean, the multiple things we've done. That is always so much more rewarding, I hate to say,
it's no
than
question.
any financial gain or business accolades. Like I can't stress that enough when I get a chance to speak. Um, I'm on my way tomorrow to Banff to the Western Dealers Conference. And again, I'll be talking about a software company I created a few years ago, and to help the automotive world, because that's what I'm familiar with.
Right.
And again, that company, like all the others, donates money to charity and perpetuity, and you can truly have an impact on society and others. So I'm very lucky. That's my passion. And it all came about from such a random chain of events of almost dying, and then a career path that was never planned. But I know you're a huge advocate, and you come from a crazy good work ethic, and maybe not as much anymore, but certainly in my day, it was always the work ethic that got me these jobs, that got me this opportunities every time, just outworking everybody around you.
And I still do that today, even at 84, Brent. I just turned 84 last Friday, actually. And I call it 84 years young. And so the same growing up in Holland during challenging times, but there's always was our background was always being part of the community and giving back to the community and being actively involved. And so that's how I grew up in Holland, saw that from my parents and the people around me, and it always came with me too when I had those opportunities here, when I came to Canada and still do in BC and in particular Northern British Columbia, and immensely rewarding and very, very important in my life. And as you already indicated, business is fun and making money to a certain extent and going through all the ups and downs is, but there is nothing more rewarding than sharing it with people that have challenges. And you already know I'm ADHD and dyslectica. And then at the same time, what I do is on Friday, last Friday actually, every year I spend on Remembrance Day at least time with two schools where I give presentations about why the 2 minutes of silence is so important and why we should appreciate what we have because there's so many others around the world that don't. And then from my experience back to the Second World War, I was there, saw far too much that we should not have seen, but appreciated even more, be so lucky in Canada, in particular in British Columbia, and for both of us, Northern BC has been very, very beautiful to live in, very rewarding in terms of to do business and all the other things around it. I call it the most beautiful place in the world, actually.
I agree. Well, and the people there, that's what makes Prince
Special.
George, John. I have had a chance to travel the world and lived at different homes, different places, but the people of Prince George were the big deciding factor. The people were amazing. The opportunities were there. Um, I know your story, and when you talk about you saw the worst of the worst over there, and all of us have to realize times are tough right now for a lot of people, and not having seen something you have, like when you go back to when the war, when you were gathering food and anything you could, and it was crazy of all the things, like you said, it was the coldest winter on record when you were dealing, so it could not have been worse.
Right.
But to know that you came out of that, and then what you did after that, what you did with yourself, and then I love the story of the Canadians, their involvement in helping, and you liberating you folks, and you then coming over later with that passion. I'm going to do something, and I don't know if I don't want to name names, but there's others in the community there, other entrepreneurs as well, that came from other countries like that with nothing but a crazy desire to be something and work ethic and very little money in their pocket and just made it happen. And I think
Exactly. Yeah.
there's a
Eh,
resounding story there with people that have done well in
Yes.
serial entrepreneurs. There's entrepreneurs, and it is about your attitude of seeing some of the worst times and
Yeah.
then making the best and just out and just work hard and be appreciative of what you have. And so many successful people in Prince George did exactly that. So it's an amazing
Exactly.
culture.
It
Yeah.
is, so for myself, I remember April the 12th, 1945 is when we were liberated by the Canadian Army. And I knew from that point forward, I was only 5 years old, but when I grew up, I would go to the land of my hero, Canada. And I did. And then I wanted to start with nothing, so I had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times, and I had $25.47. My employees gave this to me, actually. But what I did have, Brent, is attitude. I'm always an optimist. I avoid negative. No matter how tough today is, I know tomorrow will be better. And then passion. Whatever I do, I give it 125%. And work ethic, I work harder than anybody. And even now, still, I get up at 5:30 in the morning, and then I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late, so I'm always in a hurry, and The key for that, though, Brent, is, as you know, is to staying fit and healthy is extremely important. And I wrote a book about that. I don't know if you've seen this one. It's Living
Oh
Young,
yes.
Dying Old, and a picture of me actually. And
I know. I remember when you were. I believe this. I think you're the oldest. You may have been the oldest competing bodybuilder in
yo,
Canada, North America. I remember when you were doing that. I think was that pre-COVID, just after COVID,
I
or
competed. I competed then, both in Northern BC, then provincial. Came in second bodybuilding, third in physique. That qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And then COVID came, and then
uh,
so now again I am training for 2025 again to go to the Arnolds, and yeah, I just love it. Just a couple of things. Not so much that I like going to the gym, and I need to have a goal and an objective. That's why I do this. But for all those people watching, and although I'm 84 now, I still go to the gym. I still look fit, and this is not unique to me. That it is critical for anybody listening. You don't have to become an Olympian. You don't have to become a bodybuilder, but at least get exercise. Even if you walk half an hour a day, start half an hour a day, maybe then an hour a day. Take a partner with you if you can that motivates you. So, and then what you will feel then as you do that, then from there on in, before you know it, somebody says, "Hey, Brent, you look good, but what are you doing? You look so different." And so that is the reward. Then you know you're doing that something that is good. And the other part, which is important in my life, diet. And so I'm very particular about diet. My wife is a vegetarian. I'm vegan 80/20 ish, and I do all the shopping. And so when I go to the grocery store, I shop on the outside, inside the store, and the outside. I don't go to the processed food because I don't know what is in it, and I do substantially vegetarian stuff, and then some fish, some chicken for me as a vegan. But those parts are very, very important, and that's so.
oh, it's working well for you, and you're in
Yeah,
amazing
I
shape
like
for
it.
your age. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's obviously very great routines or habits you're into there.
So let's talk a little bit more about business, Brent. Where did you got? You have this entrepreneurial thing. I do. You do. Where did you get it? What kind of stimulated you, other than by coincidence getting the job in Houston by the car dealership, and then where did you get the taste? This is something I like to do.
I think it's a drive, John, that comes from people. I think inherently you can have that. My parents, I'm very thankful, were so hardworking. But I think you just certain people you feel a desire to do more or to create these things. So not can't just sit stagnant. So I think a big part of it, I always had two jobs. So and I looked at even when I went to high school, when I finished school each day, I went down the hill and worked at this grocery store, which was unique in that I worked till from 3 till 11 while going to
Stock
high
it.
school the last couple of years. Yeah, doing all, and I learned how to do all kinds of things with that. Felt like that they were amazing. They helped me learn all this. And then only because later I was offered a job at the mine, but I would have probably stayed at that grocery store. But again, just taking the opportunity to learn every chance you get. It's that challenge. Like as we speak, one of my recent things down here was getting my commercial real estate license and uh, business brokering. So I actually became a certified business broker. So the educate is to always keep your mind working, but to keep working on new things and education. And I find that. So I always wanted to learn more. And wherever I worked, I was like, can they teach me that? Can I learn this role? And
Yeah.
that always did very well. And then later, yeah, the ability to see how I could improve business and then those setting those goals. And that just became a passion.
So, what I always say, to become successful is to be knowledgeable, work hard, do all the basic fundamentals, right? Attitude, passion, work ethic, and then success will find you. So,
100%, John.
and
So funny.
so,
I'm laughing hearing this from you. You've got a few years on me, and but although you're in better shape, uh, yeah, that's exact. That same, almost like your plaque there. You will. I tell people you can't go wrong if you show up. I've had the opportunity as of you to employ a lot of people over the years. At one point, with the various businesses, probably 1,400 employees, and with partners and such, and always stressed, always said to everybody, they said, how can I do better? How can I do well? And I've always said, if you have a great attitude, if you show up with a good attitude and work ethic, um, you're going to do well. You
yeah,
just will naturally rise to the top. You'll be given more opportunities. People will,
exactly.
appreciate you more, and to follow your passion. So
Yeah,
when I used to run the car business, the car dealerships, and I literally every morning would be there. That's why we were so different. I would hold a meeting every morning with the team of about 40,
yeah,
just on the sales side, and would pump them up and just let them know, hey, today's passion, you're going to help people out. And I've said to them, I always said, if this isn't your passion, like and your passions can change, but I said, if your passion is if you always want to be a helicopter pilot, life is far too short. Go do that. And then you'll have a passion. And then it may not be the most money at first, may never be, huge money, but you'll be happy every day. And you have 24 hours all of us have the same 24 hours. I mean, a lot of people sleep 8 of those. So if you think your remaining 16 hours is spent 8 of it at work, 8 doing the things you like or love and with family. So you're literally spending half your waking hours. So doing something, so you better love it and enjoy it. And if you do, as you've said, John, you'll do better in life. You will
exactly.
exceed, you'll excel. If you're loving what you do, you naturally do better. So
So at one time I heard a radio show, it was a U.S., I forget now which one, a U.S. channel of some sort. And they said, and I believe it is the same in Canada, that 75% of the people that work in the United States don't like their job. And 70% of the 75 are looking for another job. And I believe it is the same in Canada. And a lot of times when I do presentation to schools here or young people, high schools, colleges, university, a lot of times I ask a lot of the people and saying, okay, so when you're down here, what do you want to do? What direction are you going in? He's saying, I don't know. And say, it's important, I believe, respectfully, that the more you find out before you have to make those decisions, is that if you think about it being a truck driver, talk to a truck driver. Tell them what is involved. How about this? How about that? Or if you want to be a contractor, build houses, talk to a contractor. Ask them what is involved, where are the benefits, where are the challenges, or maybe you want to be a lawyer, a doc, or whatever, or even an entrepreneur. A lot of them would love to talk to you, especially if you say, well, I'm exploring opportunities and directions as to where I want to go, because it is so critically important. And then what I did is I wrote a book about that, is finding your passion, living the dream, and saying that
and you have
I was academically not a success story. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. So I went to work when I was 13. And then they said to my parents, I failed grade 7 for the 3rd time. They said, what are we going to do with this guy? So maybe send him to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So then they said, okay, maybe my dad had a friend that had a furniture factory and he was in lumber. And he said, well, maybe get him a job in the furniture factory. And then in the evening, I can become a furniture maker. So that's what I did. And I loved it. So from that point forward, and obviously I stayed in lumber. Now I'm still working very hard and I'm very, very busy at 84. So I've been working from the time I was 13 till still now and hopefully longer. I love my job. I still love to go to work. and I love the things that I'm doing, and that's the difference. And I could not visualize, I could not for myself or anybody else to say that I hate my job, because then if you do, you take that home with you and it becomes part of you, and people can see that. And that's why it is so important for people like you, like myself, that it stimulates others, because I get very excited about every day that we're doing things, and whatever that may be. I'm always looking at it as a challenge, and I'm always trying to do it better than anybody else does it. And that's an inspiration for others in a lot of cases.
And that's what they say. We need to be challenged. So there's lots to talk about there with what you just said, John. First, to think of these people, like you said, if you're unhappy in your job, if you're not enjoying it, and I wouldn't say you don't have to love your job. It's great. There are lots of times I went to work, I loved my job. There are lots, and there's things I don't love about today. There's business stuff I'm doing I'm not enjoying, but for the most part, and I can envision these, like you say, how many people are following a career path because it's what they fell into and they're afraid to make a leap. I also warn people it's very different from our generation, and hopefully mine was kind of the end of it, where the parents really pushed you. So it wasn't your passion. So I say to people, do not follow. I won't be popular with your parents. Don't follow their passion. If dad's a lawyer and wants you to be a lawyer, unless you see it and you see. But do you know how many people I now associate with now at just over 50? A large group of that generation, my generation, were were encouraged by their parents to become a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, whatever. And thank God, because we need them. But it was someone else's passion. And many of them told me later, after 4 or 5 years, they didn't like it. And now, because they had spent all this time and money on school, and that was they were just going to suck it up. And many of them are doing it to this day. They'll do it for another 10 years. So they truly disliked their life, the 8 hours of every day and more, because it affects you. And I want to break that cycle. I love speaking to people about, like, say, the passion, and it may or may not work out. There were so many times at 25, I was broke after that car wreck and after coming out of school. In fact, I was massively in debt for school and I had nothing, and living in the basement, actually. And that was also a wonderful experience. The basement I lived in with these great girls that took me in upstairs, it's what you make of it. So I had an amazing, and every day, like you say, tomorrow's going to be better.
Yeah.
And look how that grew. That very shortly afterwards, not only was I making really good money, doing something I never thought I would love, but I did love selling cars to people because I love cars and people and
And you
showing them.
love people, right? So because you have to have that ability, that you must be, for what you did, natural, or because of your training, you have self-confidence and you're a good communicator. And a particular, and changing the car business as I saw it in the past, and not so much now. It has changed, where it's based much more on credibility and being open about the cost of a car, rather than it used to be, well, I have to talk to the manager who used to talk to this and all that kind of stuff. Now you know that, and that business is changing. And as I watch it changing, going even further than that, is that people buying cars online
And you have
that are being delivered, in even with used cars, and the interaction, the whole business is changing.
Well, funny, that's 5 years ago at the request of some of the major OEM presidents for Stellantis, which is Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ford, and others. They actually, in some of my meetings with them in Detroit and Windsor, had said we need that. The industry wasn't changing fast enough. So that's how I ended up with Omni Auto, which we provide websites, the latest generation websites and chat and CRM for dealers. And it is all about what the consumer wants now. It's
Right.
based on the buying, not on my guy said it today, actually. It's not about the sales process these days. That's what it was always about, all about how do you sell it. Now it's the
Exactly.
buy. Now it's the customer experience. How can we make it as easy as possible for them to
Yeah.
buy a car with the most transparency? And when you can do all that, which we were doing, and then add the charitable component. So because we were very successful, and even in some of these companies that I've started through COVID, I made a terrible mistake. I was very bored, got really bored at one point, and so I came up with these startup companies. So another 3 or 4 new companies. And because of the uniqueness of COVID, I had a chance to get them all going. And now, as we come out of COVID, things are going. It's been overwhelming. It's been a lot. But learning about new industries, I jumped into a bunch of new things. And that's part of it. It's like you said, the challenge, I just can't imagine that sitting at a desk and if you're doing the same thing day in, day out, not enjoying it, even if it means working at that same place, take on a new challenge,
Yeah.
step up for, I had that great conversation with someone recently that said they had offered another opportunity at their workplace, but it didn't really come with any extra compensation. And I said, but you must be bored with what you're doing. And it's not always about the compensation. You know what the taxes are like these days, anyways. They get their $1 or $2 raise and you don't even notice it at the end of the day. But I was like, think of the difference when you have something tangible, something exciting now to dig your teeth into. And then maybe you're going to find out this isn't what it is. And I've changed. We talked about career paths. You mentioned earlier, I still have my class one. Um, Funny you say if you want to be a truck driver or a carpenter, I've ended up in these different businesses out of sheer interest,
Yeah.
not having any skills, but I still have my class one. I still have a Freightliner I drive myself to keep my
Exactly.
skills up and such. And it wasn't the career for me, but I tried it. I did it for up north, actually, between Prince George and Prince Rupert, hauling fuel. And I just said, I'm not, before I started the car business, I thought maybe I'll try this. So I did, and it didn't work. But you got to keep trying, find your passion, right?
Yeah.
So that I kept
Yeah.
trying. And to this day, I'm still changing things up all the time because I've got to be passionate about what I'm doing.
So I just want to come back to marketing and a car business being an example that has changed so dramatically and still is changing more as we speak, I believe. And then the same if you look at marketing. We have a place on the island in North Saanich, and the Amazon. I've watched them
And you have,
and Jeff Bezos, in the last 20 years, really coming from becoming a bookseller to an amazing marketing structure. They built a facility in Sydney, huge. I don't know if there is one in Kelowna or not, but they built these massive structures. There's
yeah,
150 cars that where they are delivering so systematically set up, so well developed, very, very interesting to watch. And I had one fellow actually that used to be a VP at Amazon from 2002 to 2006, just when they were in the transition going from books to all the other stuff. It's amazing what is happening in marketing, and
and
the
you have,
key is always, and I kind of look at you and your background and experience, timing is everything, but being ahead of time
and
is
you have,
always delicate. But in order to be really successful, you have to be there, you have to take risk, and you have to be dreaming big, but at the same time, timing has to be just right. Because if it isn't, then it becomes very, very delicate.
yeah. Oh, I agree. And I delve into these, some successful, some not. The crazy part is, I think I've now been involved in over 45 companies, John, and I can admit now, especially through COVID, one of your other podcasts, people were talking about how COVID hit them so hard. Some of my companies took a real hit, others did okay. Um, but the only thing we were just saying, the only thing that is consistent is things will keep changing. You just don't
Yeah,
know what to expect. So whether it's
exactly.
Amazon, who would have guessed that? The way the car business has changed and electric cars. Um, the
And you
latest I'm working. You might like to research a bit about this. Has been a topic by Joe Rogan and Dana White, UFC and such. Is I got into the beverage world, like hydrogen enhanced water, and I got very passionate about it, and that passion turned into the Canadian Olympic team reaching out to me and to access our hydrogen water, and me telling them, um, here's my vision. It's a very hard business to get into. I've been 4 or 5 years at this and trying to create the best water in the world. So we actually sourced water, then we ran it through a crazy filtration system, then we run it through a hydrogen machine to make the best water in the world. And it's this passion I have. What I love about the Olympic tie-in, I said to them, I can provide the water to you folks because of all its benefits, hydrogen enhanced water. I want to make a change. I want to I want to have an alternative energy, and it's actually a new class of product we created called energy waters. Is their hydrogen enhanced water with natural ingredients for energy that were brought to us by the Canadian Olympic team. They're naturopaths, dietitians, nutritional practitioners, scientists. They came to us. So I haven't shared that with you. It's not on shelves yet. It's just starting. But there's an example of a passion. But I don't know if my timing, I don't know if the market's ready for it. It could be a disaster. I'm trying. But like you say, they're not all successes.
so where does
But at least you could be working towards something.
what is the water coming from? What makes that unique?
Oh, a spring up at Big White. So above environmental contaminants, we
Right.
had a spring up there
And
over
you
7,500 feet. The water coming out of it was amazing. I sent it to 4 different universities, environmental health sciences, and had them test it, and said, what do you think of this water? What would it take to make this the best water in the world? And then trademark that, and websites and all these other infiltration systems. So we're
and
there
you
now, but again, I don't know, John. Like you said, I don't know if
how
I've
did
still
you
got
get access to does it were you able to secure the source though?
yeah,
I don't want to
and then
ask
later
any
became
secrets, but
proprietary stuff. But to your point of entrepreneur, that's one. The an ambulance company that I'm waiting to launch as we speak has been held up to provide an opportunity for people that need. If you need to be transported, there's currently a real hole in that market. There's a real missing hole in having people transported safely and comfortably from places like Prince George down south, etc. I saw needs, so I'm trying to get that going. That's just finding things that you're maybe a new thing that you're passionate about.
right.
But
And
my
you
point is, it doesn't have to be what you do or know.
no.
Look at me from electronic engineering, and I never did it a day in my life.
Yeah.
It was a great experience, but
Yeah.
how bizarre is that? Or even you, like you said, for yourself, schooling meant nothing.
No.
I don't. That's no disrespect to any, but
Experience.
it experiences everything, and both help. Like my time in university has been very beneficial,
Yeah.
but it's not everything for everyone. And maybe you did become a lawyer or a doctor because that's what your parents wanted, or a kid today coming out of school for whatever well, that doesn't mean you're stuck. That is not now what your stripes are.
No.
You can at any time in life. And this latest, look at one of the most rewarding this last year when I decided for my own benefit initially,
And you
I wanted to be able to do commercial real estate deals and business brokering deals without having to have third and fourth parties involved. Right.
right.
So simple fact, I just didn't want multiple people involved. I had so much experience at it. So I said, I'm going to, in my spare time, and this is like you, John, when you're finding time to go to the gym, bodybuilding, I'm in the evenings, I'm in Vancouver taking night courses at my
Yeah.
age and to get these things done. Turned around, got those, and then started a whole new way of doing business where if you're driving into Kelowna, you'll see my billboards where I donate 50% of the commissions to charity,
Right.
because the commissions in the commercial real estate world and business brokering are really large. And it sounds terrible, but they shouldn't be. So what we do is, I said, we've got this real estate company. We're going to help people, and we're going to we're going to make sure our rates are the same or lower than anyone.
Right.
But we're with the seller or buyer, we're going to decide.
And
We know you're going to pay a commission to somebody. Why wouldn't you let us help? And then we're going to turn around and give that to a charity we're all very passionate about. And funny enough, I have a listing. It's public knowledge now. There's a listing in Prince George for the big medical building. the Victoria Medical Building. The wonderful owners of that reached out and said, Brent, explain this charity stuff you do. We know
Yeah.
what you did when you were in Prince, but what are you doing now? And can you help us with this? So I said, of course. So you have to, the most amazing part, they're selling the building. They would normally list through anyone, a lot of great companies. The difference when they list with us and we sell it, $85,000 you're going to see is coming back to Prince George to help kids
Yeah.
in the town of Prince George, directly having an impact on them. And that's that group. They're big into community sports, making sports accessible. So I'd said, if that's your passion, I would love to get behind it. And we are. So that's how we're changing industry, how we're changing. So I did it in the car world with transparency and training. And now I'm doing it with real estate and others. Um, and then, of course, like I say, whatever your passion is, with me, it's having both be able to grow or scale a business or something like it and design it to give back. That to me, when you saw my dealerships or even our real estate company here in Kelowna, and it's around the province, the deals we've done, we gave away we gave over $1 million to charities last year.
Right.
I just was at the Mamas for Mamas gala down here where we help single parents, and just that charity alone was, I think she said, we're their largest donor, helping people everywhere, and that was $1 million. And then we organize a wonderful family down here, the August family, working with them. So it's no different than business, John. It's funny. It's like a passion. So
Yeah.
we're passionate about business and we're passionate about charity.
Yeah.
We did our Okanagan Dream Rally, which you may have heard about that, 200
Yeah.
to 300 supercars and such. And we take children with us, kids that are in need of some kind. We take them for the day, and then all of us get together and we raise 1.5 to $2 million in a day. And that goes to Ronald McDonald House because they help people from all over the province. So it impacts all the outlying communities, and to Kelowna General Hospital and Joanna's house. So that's just one thing. And I always say to other people, if we could get a percentage of the population to be that passionate about helping others, we wouldn't have these holes we currently have. Right?
Exactly.
I look at as a business owner, I look at what my one business was able to do in Prince George with that children's wing, on the hospital. Later, we did Cancer Lodge family rooms. We did outside play. We did the Remax All Wheels Park down here. Like, there's one I mentioned to Mr. McWalter, part of this today. One of the exciting things I wanted to announce, which may have got out there, but publicly for the first time on your podcast, is that I'm donating the motorsports park, the Prince George Motorsports Park that I've had for all these years, and so many wonderful sponsors locally and volunteers. So it's one of my passions because I grew up racing cars, still do. And this facility came available years ago when I bought it, and we just keep pouring money into it, and several partners have helped. But recently, you'll see we put everything in place. So I'm donating that back to the community of Prince George.
Wow.
So it's
Is
133 acre.
Is that north of Prince George? And
It's up by Chief. It's on Chief Lake Road. It's
right.
the quarter-mile track.
Right.
There's a
I've
lake,
been
mud
there.
bog. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's 10 minutes outside of town.
Right.
It's crucial that we protect it
Oh, yes,
because
no
you
question.
can't replace them anymore. No one would ever
No.
build a new one.
No.
And so all the people in Western Canada, some even from the US, they come up, and proudly, Prince George is now one of the top, it's one of the nicest quarter-mile tracks and motorsport parks in the country.
Wow.
And so recently, talking to my children and my family trust stuff, is I've said I want to make it public. We're donating this to the city of Prince George. So we're going to donate
Wow.
this $2 million property back, to help others like that. That maybe that's their passion. And down here, we're doing stuff more with kids in healthcare. Next week, I'll be at Ronald McDonald House doing a donation, $80,000 to
And
them for a property we sold in Kelowna here. So that to me, you talk about passion, is I get to work on business and I get to work on charity. And I say to people, you don't have to have any money, but we all have the same thing as time. So
exactly.
choose so you'll know me, and I'm terrible, John. I can't comment on the news. I never watch TV. So I don't watch any news. I don't read it. I don't listen to it. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
And I just focus on what I can control. So
Exactly.
I can help people and I can do businesses. And so I just say to everybody, even if you don't have a bunch of money, but you have a job. Good things happen to me throughout life because of the volunteering, helping others.
Right.
You wouldn't believe how often when I do a charity event down here and I invite people to come help, they meet other amazing people.
Yeah.
And then those people see them as great humans, and it's rewarded with job opportunities and other things. So I've always said that is no excuse. All of us could choose to spend some time, and that could be at the soup kitchen, that could be at the any one of the local charities. Just do something to help
And,
others, and
and
the
it,
doors
it's
that'll open up.
it's a question of making it part of culture and saying it's extremely rewarding. You don't have to be rich or have a lot of money, but what you do have, you likely have time. And as you then become involved in giving back, it is extremely rewarding because you meet friends, and at the same time, it's that part of society which is so very, very important to give back. And now the other part that I found, Brent, having been entrepreneurial for pretty much my whole life, is that I do the same as you do. I always look for opportunity. I still do. Even right now, we're working on 2 or 3 different deals of some sort or another. Is that I've done well being through all the ups and downs, and then people say, well, you're so lucky. I say, no, the harder you work, the luckier you get. That's how it works. And then the other part, which is important, is that I probably have an advantage, and so do you, in a way that what makes me different is attitude, passion, work ethic. But the other one that I've acquired the skill to become a visionary. I always look forward. I need to know what happens in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and all the different things that I do. I always ask myself the question, what will it look like? And at what point do I step into an opportunity? And I've always done that. So around Prince George right now, obviously we're in the lumber business. I'm trying to buy 3 different lumber mills right now from Canfor that closed them or are planning to close them, and trying to put that together. We still have lumber manufacturing in Prince George, Vanderhoof in Houston. At the same time, with by far the largest warehousing company in northern British Columbia, Interior Warehousing. I bought that 5, 6, 7 years ago, and we quadrupled it, tripled it in size. And then the other, that is one silo. So the one silo is lumber, the other silo warehousing, distribution, logistics. The other silo is media. The other silo is real estate, residential, commercial, and industrial. And then the other 4th silo is media. And I do
Okay, yeah.
books. I'm working on my 6th book. Obviously, I'm very active in podcasting. And then I'm working on setting up a platform that should get off the ground in the next 3 to 4 months. So I always make sure, even at my age, all those silos, each one of them will double or triple in size in the next 5, 10 years. And I intend to be around for that long as if I can. And but I always look at growing the companies. But the advantage that I have a lot of times, I'm a visionary. And then a lot of people say you take risk. No, I don't. Before I do something, I spend a lot of time thinking about it. And then if you want to go forward, you have to think big and you have to think different than other people. And I do
Well,
that.
I was listening to your other podcast about the lumber industry and changing the status quo. We could all see there were a lot of mistakes made. No disrespect to those in power, but man, you could just see everyone was afraid to change the status quo, and then it became a disaster. Like I grew up through that, through the beetle kill and all the lumber, and everyone, any common sense said, let's get that wood down, let's process it before it becomes a fire risk. Let's process before. Crazy that didn't happen. I mean, I don't want to get into that today. You're the expert. You've talked about it, but it resonates in what you said earlier. You still at your age and with everything you've done, you could obviously have sat back long ago and just relaxed. I think it's hilarious, that mentality of you're working on multiple projects and the challenge, even at your age, with what you have on the go. And I'm the same. Like it'll never stop. Any chance to retire, I don't even worry. That's another fallacy I say to people. You don't want to retire. If you love what you do and what you're doing every day is a new challenge, you never want to retire. And you're
No,
the epitome of that. You are the example
exactly.
of could have, but you want to. And then you see it. That's why you're so good today, so healthy, so clear of mind, is staying active and finding stuff you're passionate about. So I can't stress enough.
Living young, dying old. And
Yeah,
then stay fit mentally, physically, stay healthy. And so what I always say, it's not overly complicated. Make sure you get lots of sunshine, vitamin D. Make sure you get lots of sleep. For sleep is very, very important. Diet is very important. And then obviously fitness and health is very important. And it does not mean that you have to be an Olympian, but stay fit. And if you do all of those things, and then with some luck, hopefully, make sure you take care of your health. Understand your body.
oh, mental health too, John. One thing you mentioned, we talk a lot about physical health, most of it. It's interesting as I've aged and had a chance to experience so many different things. Now I love sharing with people the importance of finding what you passionate about what you do and being happy every day is far more important than money, because repeatedly
Yes,
growing up we were all brought up it was all about money and money would bring happiness, which we know it does not at all. Some of the most unhappy people I know are the wealthiest
exactly.
for various reasons I won't get into today.
I
But
agree with you
I
100%.
I tell you, when you realize it's all about, if you mentally feel good about your day, you're going to enjoy it, you're going to do well. And sadly enough, I've watched a lot of people following some of the pathways we mentioned earlier where you're not loving what you do. And then it takes a toll on them. So then they end up later in life in their 40s and 50s, and you see them doing crazy stuff. They're just not happy. And
Exactly.
so take the opportunity when you can to find something that where you enjoy every day. I just hate to see people waste their lives.
Exactly.
And I'm known for ready, fire, aim. So you are far more visionary, strategic in what you do. I pull the trigger on stuff that I'm passionate about, and so quite often too soon, but I really enjoy what I do. So that is the difference, right? Yeah,
Brent, the hour has gone by far too quickly. Let's make
it
sure
really.
we stay in touch because your life very exciting, and obviously we are friends, and we should make sure we stay in touch. And again, thank you for being on my podcast and sharing with all those people that watching us from around the world about your background, your inspiration, and first and foremost is be active, believe in the things that you do, and look at opportunity. And even more importantly, always look at your community and give back. Doesn't mean it has to be money, but be involved in your community.
100%. Don, you think that being involved, that's why I'm excited about this. Hopefully I'll come see you guys when I'm up, because there'll be this big donation announcement made. And like you say, money or not, it's not a donation of something. It's not giving. I think of our relay. Remember, our Relay for Life was the largest in the country. And I love showing up and being a part of that. And that's all people had to do. You just had to show
Exactly.
up and be a part of it. And that's all we
Exactly.
ask others to do. Not all, just think about, if you help others, everyone will do well.
I agree. Brent,
Appreciate all you do, John.
thank you for being on my show.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Bye bye.
Thanks, John.